Good morning, everyone. Welcome to City Conversations. There's a few people still coming in. I'll let them in as they come. You should all be muted. So can you just check to that? We're going to be running through a number of different things for next year and actually the years ahead with TFGM officers. So particularly we're going to be going on clean air plan in a minute, but where we are, developments over the next 6 months, 12 months. And it's going to be a big fest of TFGM presentation slides and talks and whatever. I'm sure there are going to be some questions. For those of you who are watching the recording, please email through questions to myself or Laura, and we'll try and get answers for you from TFGM. For those of you attending, if you've got anything, just stick it in the chat function and we can ask at the end and then run through any issues. I will keep an eye on the people who are coming in. Apart from that, I don't think there's any other housekeeping. Emma, take it away.
Thank you, Vaughan, and hi everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. As Vaughan mentioned, we've got a few areas to cover off today and canter through between myself, Emma Flynn, and my colleagues Graham Banks and Sally Robinson. So just moving on to the next slide. Thanks, Sophie. We are going to do a quick look at the current network and sort of the short-term look ahead into the new year. And go into a little bit of detail around the trends and what that's looking like coming out of pandemic. We're going to talk around a little bit longer term around the delivery of the B network and the vision for integrated transport across Greater Manchester and some of the key developments for that. And then we're going to move on to the clean air plan and a look ahead to the clean air zone implementation and support available. So we're going to go through all of those updates and then should leave us a good chunk of time at the end for questions as well. So I'll hand over to Graham around our current network overview.
Thanks, Emma, and good morning to everyone. Just going to touch on quickly some of the themes that we're seeing and some of the what's really going on in the network at the moment, especially over the last month, the last 7 days. I'll just touch firstly on the network trends, the longer term picture on this first side. And this is going back to the actual outbreak of COVID in March last year. I think one of the things that really draws attention to me, and especially over the last few months, is the active travel uptake, which is really promising to see in Greater Manchester. You can see the green and the little grey line there cycling, but the green's walking. We've got a consistent picture at the moment, and today's probably a good example of the drier weather we're having. So we're seeing, well, a couple of things. One's a continuation of the active travel, which is great. But what we're also seeing is a continuation of shorter trips in GM. Are actually trips of under 2 miles are still at actually over 2019 levels. We're about averaging between 10 and 20% over. So that's great for people using active travel for them short trips, which is obviously trying to hit some of our right mix targets in Greater Manchester. So it's a bit of a steady state of affairs at the moment. We'll come on to a bit more detail in the next couple of slides, but at the moment, as you can see, it's starting to level off a little bit towards the winter period, which generally, as we'll see in the next couple of slides, we are starting to see a demand increase on the network. Okay, so this slide's it really spells out what's been going on the last month and the last 7 days. So the upper part, you can see that just as I spoke about, an increase in active travel, which is fantastic. We're still below trip numbers in totality, 3% below prior to 2019. Public transport again, 28% below. We'll come on to a bit more of that in a minute. That's an opportunity really we've still got a lot of capacity on public transport for people to use. And we're still 2% below on highways. What I will say about highways is, even though the figure's 2% below, we are seeing a different trend in terms of the way people are moving around in private vehicles in terms of the trip profile. So what we're tending to see is a lesser morning peak. The two distinctive peaks we were used to a couple of years ago no longer really exist in terms of highways. The morning peak, there is a lot more opportunity, a lot more supply there for people to travel in the morning. When we're starting to get into the mid-afternoon, evening, that's where it really ramps up, and that's where we're seeing some of the issues that we're seeing. But if we're trying to retime drivers, and we understand that people do need to drive, that's a period that we really encourage some of the trips, that there is quicker journey times in the morning period. And in the last 7 days, what we're seeing, we're still below 2.5% below in terms of the number of trips. again, an increase in active travel, I think around about 14% specifically on cycling, which is great. 21% in public transport, still below. What I will say though is that we're actually, in the last week, had an increase in trips on public transport. It's really been driven by that weekend demand, which is fantastic. We're trying to enable travel, not trying to block travel. So to see an increase, I'm looking at some stats, 3% on Metrolink, rail 6%, it's fantastic to see that people are traveling again and really going, especially towards the city centre, for everything that goes on in the city centre. And we've had an increase of 3% on highways again. That's predominantly weekend demand. So trips to and through the regional centre, this graph just illustrates what's going on. So we're basically leveling off at the moment. We're still 82% of the November 2019 baseline. What we are seeing is a bit of an emerging pattern, and we're trying to do some work with travel demand management at the moment, is actually the city being used as a through route. So not necessarily people going to the regional centre and parking up and shopping, retail, leisure, etc., but actually using the inner ring road as a through route to go from west to east, north to south, etc. So what we're trying to do is persuade some of these regular users of this through route to actually use the outer ring road. So not necessarily the M60, but maybe Alan Turing Way and round, so we can create some more space. We are having some troubles, as I'm sure you're aware, of city centre congestion at the moment. So this should release some of them pressure points, some of the tactics that we use in targeting through Waze and Google and the likes of them to really target them drivers that are consistently using the city centre as a through route rather than a destination point. And just more stats here. You can read. I think the one that really brings it home to me is the weekend trips and the increase in travel to hospitality and leisure. We'll touch on more later in the presentation some of the things that are going on in the city at the moment. But really, what we're seeing is that real increased demand at the weekend, and specifically between 9:30 and 6, slightly later on Sunday due to the opening hours. But we are seeing a real big demand shift. However, like I mentioned, we're trying to enable travel. We have got certain periods where we can push people to quieter times, and I think that's really important, especially flexible travels of the network. We understand some people can't travel at flexible times, so we're trying to encourage those who can travel flexibly to do so at quieter times, whether that's retail quieter periods, and that coincides with our transport quiet periods. They're both tying together. We can certainly help each other out in that way. But great to see that we're actually above 2019 levels on Saturdays and Sundays, which is fantastic to see that people are coming back to the city centre. And I think I'm handing back over to you, Emma, now.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, just a couple of slides around the Metrolink Christmas campaign, which is coming soon. So it's running from the 1st to the 25th of December, as you might expect, and includes a couple of main strands. So the first being promotion around festive things to do and how to get there across the network. And then the other key element is a social media giveaway with prizes, and there are opportunities to get involved with both of these elements if it's of interest. So just moving on to the first element, which is all around driving people to tfgm.com/Christmas to provide sort of inspiration around events and venues across GM, including the sort of Zone 1 area that are accessible by tram. So we're promoting that through owned and partner channels over the coming weeks. And there is, as I say, the opportunity to get in touch and get involved in that if you're not already. And we've got some details on the next slide around that. Also moving on with the social media competition. So this is a advent calendar competition which involves a giveaway each day between the 1st and the 24th of December. Again, as I mentioned, it's around driving people to the main landing page to then explore further opportunities around events and venues linked to the network. And we are still looking for partners to get involved with that through prizes and giveaways. So if there is something that you want to add to the mix for that, then the key colleague there get in touch with is Max So in our marketing team. So just, I guess, an ask if you'd like to do that, then to get in touch in the next few days ahead of the 30th of November. Back over to you, Graham.
Thanks, Emma. I think it's just important to touch on some of the things that we'll continue to do at Transport for Greater Manchester in terms of the safe travel advice, but a lot of this is included in the travel demand work we're doing as well, and it's been part of our kind of daily work really for the last 18 months or so, and in terms of continuation, obviously, to encourage public transport and active travel. But really, one of the things that we've been doing, and I touched on it earlier, was the encouragement of flexible travel. So that's when we know there's adequate supply on public transport, to really try and push people towards the quieter times. That obviously gives more confidence of travel, keep social distancing to some extent. So some of these images are what we're continuing to do. So we're still encouraging flexible travel, and we're really wanting to work with partners, stakeholders. When we see busy periods at shops, for example, we want to try and help you guys and help us really to spread that demand on the network. So that's one of the things we're looking to continue to do. Also got we're still exploring ticketing options, but we've got ticketing products now that can help that flexible travel. And when people are traveling as well, we're still encouraging, obviously, face masks for all trips, washing hands and hand sanitizer on Metrolink stops now, and still encouraging people to pay by contactless. And I know a lot of people are doing that in society in general, but we're still encouraging that. And I think another really positive campaign that was being launched recently is the Travel Safe campaign, working with Greater Manchester Police. They're targeting areas where there has been some antisocial behaviour, going to Metrolink stops and interchanges to really reassure customers that it is safe to travel on the network. And there's been some really great results, which I'm sure we can share with the group as well. Okay, I'm just going to touch quickly on some of the demands that we're going to be seeing up until Christmas, and then touch on more some of the Metrolink works that are planned for next year. So as you can see from this first slide, it's a very busy event season. As we know, we've not just got the Christmas markets and everything that brings, and we just touched on the weekend demands, people coming back to the city centre, which is great. We've got to just combine that with the demand for some high-profile events. You can see the arena's really kicked off again. A lot of these events were postponed over the last 18 months, so we're starting to just get really hammered with arena events, which is great. Bringing people into the city, hopefully on public transport, but it just brings some challenges as well. And we're all familiar with the demands of football that brings to the city, but also the opportunities that brings as well. A lot more people coming into the city from outside of Greater Manchester, for example, so that's fantastic. I think when we're looking at these fixtures now, the one that really comes out to me is probably the 18th of December, the last weekend before Christmas. People will be coming back to, obviously, come for the last bit of Christmas shopping alongside football. So it's one of we've picked out 5 real big hotspot days where we think there's going to be a real challenge on the network, but also, like I say, an opportunity to try and push the quieter periods on public transport for people who aren't going to the events. And that's the key bit we've been working on recently is not just focusing on the events itself, but everything around it. So we want to make sure that everyone can travel and give a good customer experience to travel as well. We don't want to see trams full of people or trains full of people or buses. We want to see that spread of demand so everyone has a good customer experience. And then touching on to next year, I'm happy to take some questions on this later on, but we are starting to see some Metrolink works. These works are critical for a reliable and safe network. I'd love to say that at the end of these works there's going to be a big shiny new interchange or infrastructure, but unfortunately not. It's a lot of it's track work that needs to be done to make sure that's a reliable network, and I think that's really important. We are piggybacking on the back of some Network Rail works at Victoria, so they have to do their works with the TransPennine works, so we're just kind of doing it at the same time to reduce the impact to customers. But there is going to be certain impacts, but our key aim on when any works is to keep people moving. We're looking at various alternatives and strategies to put in place to make sure that these works aren't going to stop people from traveling around the network. I think if we just touch on to March, this is where we start seeing some more problematic stuff that we're really going to have to do some work on. Especially we've got the DCF works at the start of March coinciding with some more events. You can see all the events at the top there. They just keep coming. The DCF works will stop trips going through the city centre, but won't stop people from getting to the city centre. I think that's the key bit. We're going to, city centre trips will still be enabled. We're just going to have to do some work with the cross-city approach and make sure customers can get from end to end. But ultimately, people will still be able to get to the city. And then later on in March, again, we've got some works that are postponed from last year. City centre curve works that we need to. It's just outside of Primark for people that know that area, that we need to get fixed again for that reliability of the network and safety of the network. And we've also got a line closure for Eccles, the Ashton line at the end of March as well. There is significant works for the remainder of 2022. I know it says March 2021 there, but 2022, there is some more significant works which just haven't been finalised yet. But again, we're going to be mitigating against this work to make sure people can still travel around. We know there's various other options that people can use, and really trying to work them through so people can still get around the network. And just to sum up for me, I think we've noticed some of the challenges in the city centre over the last few weeks with the demand increasing, especially at weekends, which is affecting footfall, I imagine, but it's affecting congestion in the city centre, and it's affecting public transport getting through the city centre. So we've started to put in mitigations over the last few weeks to help ease this situation. I'll just touch on some of the things that are actually causing some of the issues. We've got some roadworks on the inner ring road, which is causing some of the problems. Obviously, if we can encourage people to use public transport that have that flexibility to do that, we'll be doing that with some of the interventions that we put into place. But just touching on what's going to be happening next year, these are some of the works that are happening. The key ones really are the continuation of Trafford Road, which is causing some issues, especially on event days. But for city centre specifically, it is anything that touches the inner ring road. That's where you might lose 50% of capacity, which then has its challenges in the city centre. We're working with the council and Greater Manchester Police in order to mitigate some of these challenges, especially on Cross Street, which is causing some concerns for us at the moment. We've just got some funding actually to improve the traffic signals on Regent Road, which is a part of the big scheme that I'm sure everyone will have nightmares still about from about 4 years ago. So that'll hopefully release some of the problems that we're seeing on the western side of the city. These are challenges that we're faced with, and we're putting in various mitigations to help this. There's a big winter plan campaign that's already been launched in order to retarget the road users that are going into the city, to try and make them do something different, not necessarily get out of their cars, but maybe just reroute or retime them to the quiet periods of the day. And I think now I'm going back to Emma.
Yeah, thank you. That was good timing, because I got dropped off then and I've just arrived back in.
Just before you start, Emma, Tim's just wanted to know what DCF stands for.
Apologies. That's TFGM talk. That's Deansgate Castlefield. I should have elaborated further on that. So
we all live in so many acronyms that it's.
I know. Apologies, and I don't like them myself. But so in effect, everything from the south of the city will have to come to Deansgate Castlefield, and customers will have to we'll aid them to get across the city to other services, or if they're able to walk to the city centre, they'll be able to do from Deansgate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess just quickly to remind attendees of some of the tools and resources that are available to support. So we've got our travel guidance for business portal, which is live, which helps to provide information and resources to help embed sustainable travel choices, and that's continuing to be refreshed and evolve, sort of aligned to different considerations. And then we also have our business travel network newsletter that you can sign up to if you're not already, and that's really just a good opportunity to keep up to date with the latest news and what's happening across the transport network as well. So then just moving on a little bit, and I guess having had a look at some of the shorter term considerations over the transport network, looking ahead into the new year, starting to look a bit further ahead, and the autumn's really seen some key developments in support of our journey towards an integrated transport network for Greater Manchester. So that full integrated network through the vision for the B network, and that's really around the vision for an fully integrated London-style system for those of you that travel in London and know what that feels like in a different way to Greater Manchester, bringing together buses, trams, cycling, walking, active travel, along with commuter rail in the longer term, and really providing a significant difference to how people travel across Greater Manchester and the options available to them. I think central to that is accessibility and also affordability and ease. So a big focus around fares within that and ticketing. So the fare capping approach of sort of not having a cap around journeys between modes and within modes, and also integrated ticketing to support that, and really making it that seamless experience. As part of that, the sort of overall local control and accountability, which then can then align the development of the transport network with GM priorities. I think importantly within that, there is the role that transport has to play in delivering the plans for Greater Manchester to be net zero by 2038. Transport is a big element within that. And then also obviously the consideration around traffic congestion. So Graham's touched on that through his updates in terms of the short term, but I guess just keeping in mind that prior to the pandemic, the estimated annual cost to GM business around congestion was in the region of 1.3 billion. So essential that we are recognising that people do need to travel by car and are limited at times and days when they travel. Within that, public transport and active travel has an absolutely key role to play. So then just moving on to, I guess, a couple of the updates linked to that. Just in the past week, we've gone live with the first phase of B Network cycle hire. So that's underway in areas of Manchester and Salford, specifically along Oxford Road and around the University of Salford. So real opportunity to encourage people to travel in a different way across the city centre, whether it's commuters or sort of people travelling to meetings during the day. Obviously an opportunity for the student population as well, and anyone travelling across the city, sort of from a leisure and hospitality perspective. So we've had some really positive initial stats with that during the first few days, and there will be more stations and bikes continuing to roll out over the coming weeks and months, looking ahead to the completion of the initial phase of that, which includes expansion of the scheme into Trafford as well, which is expected to be fully up and running by June next year. And that will involve 1,500 bikes, including 300 e-bikes that will be available to the public. So lots more of that to come. And also just to update around and sticking with infrastructure, through capital submissions in the autumn to government, we have had confirmation through CSR of just over £1 billion in infrastructure funding for Greater Manchester, and that will deliver further significant investment in transport facilities, so those key facilities that are so integral to creating the vision for the B network and making that a reality. It's very much aligned to the pipeline as set out through the Greater Manchester Transport Strategy and specifically the 5-year Transport Delivery Plan. So that aligns to the specific schemes and ambitions that have been set out across the 10 local authority areas throughout Greater Manchester. Having had that confirmation of funding, which is was one of the highest confirmed funding pots for all those submitted through that. So I think it was circa 90% of the GM submission that was confirmed. The detailed plans and programme within that is being set out, and that's going to be submitted to government in the new year. I think alongside the investment in infrastructure, Greater Manchester is also seeking to secure further funding through the bus service improvement plan, which was submitted last month. So that sits alongside the infrastructure funding secured, with a focus around fares and services, and really that opportunity to transform the whole journey experience as part of the B network. I think the Greater Manchester's bus service improvement plan very much aligns to the national bus strategy, and is also sort of interlinked, and provides Greater Manchester with a really unique opportunity to deliver on this, given the decision to proceed with bus franchising that was made by the Mayor earlier this year. So within our bus services improvement plan, a lot of focus around affordable journeys, how we can introduce a capped fare, capped hopper fare, new travel cards and daily and weekly capping as part of that, not just on bus, but for trips interchanging between different modes. And then as part of that, stabilising and strengthening services and routes across the entirety of the bus network, further investment in bus priority measures, and real-time information, and enhancing that overall customer experience, and making bus a real sort of mode of choice for people alongside other options. And then also a focus around bringing in a fleet of zero emission buses as well, and the associated infrastructure as part of the wider GM ambition linked to carbon and environmental considerations as well. So that was submitted last month, as I mentioned, and we're awaiting the outcome of that submission at the moment. And then just finally, touching on the integrated rail plan, which I'm sure you will have heard a lot about in the media over the past week. So that was published by government last week, a week ago today, I think, and sets out that long-term blueprint for the development of the strategic rail network over the next 30 years. So through that, there was confirmation that phase 2B will be delivered as part of HS2. So that's the Crewe to Manchester leg, and stations at Manchester Airport and Piccadilly. There is still some uncertainty around timescales for delivery on that. And then on Northern Powerhouse Rail, and the proposals around that, the IRP included a significantly different plan to the original one proposed. So next steps with that is we're continuing to work with government and through GM partners, and indeed partners across the north, to understand the detail that sits behind that. And you will have seen sort of initial responses from political leaders and business leaders across GM and the north to the publication of that as well. So much more to come on that over the coming weeks and months. So that's everything from me, and I'll hand over to Sally on the Clean Air Plan.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. I'm really sorry I'm having to do this on my phone, so apologies if the sound quality isn't very good and if you've got a very large picture of my face on your screen. If you could move on to the next slide, Sophie. I'm here to talk about the Greater Manchester Clean Air Plan. I think I've been speaking to folks at CityCo about this for a few years now, so I may have spoken to you before about it. But just to give you a bit of background, the Clean Air Plan is going to be introduced, well, it'll sort of start in some form next week, and It's linked, it's on its way because of air pollution, which is linked to a range of serious health conditions and contributes to early deaths in Greater Manchester. It's estimated it's about 1,200 per year. And really, we're looking to improve air quality on local roads for now and for the future. All 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester have been working together to develop the Greater Manchester Clean Air Plan, and it has now been agreed. That happened in the summer with all 10 local authorities. So it's got two main elements. The first is a charging clean air zone, which is across the whole of Greater Manchester. It isn't just the city centre. Which was required by government to enable compliance, as we have got illegally high levels of nitrogen dioxide in certain stretches of road. So we need to get those to the legal limits in the shortest possible time, and by 2024 at the latest. Alongside that charging clean air zone, there's also, we've secured over £120 million worth of support, which will be through grants and finance options for those with non-compliant vehicles to help them upgrade to a compliant solution so they wouldn't have to pay in the clean air zone. If you could move on to the next slide. So here we are, here's a sort of forward look of where we are. I think last week perhaps, the National Vehicle Checker went live, which you can get to from our website or by going to gov.uk, where you can type in your number plate and see if your vehicle would be charged for entering the clean air zone or driving within it. As well as that, on the 30th of November, which is next week, the financial support scheme goes live for those with non-compliant HGVs. So you'll be able to apply online to get a grant, and that grant will be dependent on the weight of your vehicle, which is non-compliant, and you'll go through some eligibility checks, and then you'll be able to apply for up to 5 vehicles for the financial support to help you upgrade to those. As well as that, we're issuing letters to those with impacted vehicles. So at this moment in time, it'll be going to those with non-compliant HGVs, which are registered within Greater Manchester. And we're using DVLA data to do that, so that we can really target those who we think, according to their DVLA records, have got a non-compliant vehicle. So that's happening now. And next week, and then the end of January next year, which sort of sounds like a long time away, but actually isn't, we'll be launching the financial support scheme for all the other vehicle types. So for vans, taxis, minibuses, coaches, and also anyone who would be eligible for a discount or one of the permanent exemptions would be able to apply as well. And that then leads us to, after that, a few months after that, 30th of May 2022, there'll be a Greater Manchester-wide Clean Air Zone would go live. That isn't for all the vehicle types within the Clean Air Zone. That would be for buses, HGVs, and out-of-town taxis and private hire vehicles, so those that aren't licensed within the 10 Greater Manchester local authorities. Coaches would get charged, but they can apply for a temporary exemption, and they can apply for that exemption from the end of January 2022. So then a year later, from the 1st of June 2023, all non-compliant vehicles, with the exception of cars and motorbikes, would come into scope for a charge. So that would include vans, taxis that are licensed with one of the Greater Manchester local authorities, minibuses, and the temporary exemption for coaches would end as well from that date. So there would be a charge in place there. We're also working with our colleagues in government, National Highways, which is the new name of Highways England, and Tameside Metropolitan Borough Council for a stretch of road near Hollingsworth, which is currently part of the strategic road network. So it's managed by National Highways, and we're looking to introduce that into the clean air zone as well. So there's some sort of legalities around how that would work and actually how that would be managed as well that we need to work through in order for that to be part of the clean air zone, but work is ongoing with that. If you'd like to move on to the next slide. Fab, thank you. So what is available? I tell you what I can do is we've got a 4-page briefing note which goes into a bit more detail around all this anyway. So perhaps after the event we can share that with attendees and anyone who's wants it. So financial support. So as I said, for HGVs, for buses, there's already financial support open. That is, those applications can be made now and have been open for a while. For HGVs, it opens, and the financial support package opens at the end of the month, so 30th of November. And that grant for replacement funding could be up to 12,000 or 16,000 if you're looking for a retrofit. The charges for buses, HGVs, and out of town hackneys and private hires come in from the 30th of May 2022, as I said. For coaches, vans, minibuses, and Greater Manchester licensed hackneys and PHVs, the charges come in from the 1st of June 2023. You can see the daily charge there in the table, and the funding that's available varies on the vehicle type. So, for example, for vans, it's up to 4,500. It depends on the weight of the vehicle. So if you've got a small van, such as one of those Berlingo vans, a car-derived van, which is a 1.6 tonne van, I seem to know a lot about vehicle weights now, then you'd be eligible for a £3,500 grant to support replacement. But if it was a larger transit type van, then it would be up to 4,500 you would be eligible for. As I said, the clean air zone is across the whole of Greater Manchester. That's the boundary there. It doesn't include the strategic road networks. That's motorways and main trunk roads, as they're managed by national highways and are under a different direction to local authorities. The clean air zone would run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and each day of the year. And it would run from midnight to midnight with a charging day. The daily charges can be paid up to 7 days in advance or 7 days in arrears, and if they weren't charged, then would be a penalty charge notice would be issued, which would be £120 on top of the daily charge. It would subsequently get reduced to 60 if you paid it within 14 days. We'd move on. Thank you. So it's a lot to take in, and it is really complicated, and I think we're all very aware of that, and it is coming soon. We've got until the 30th of May before the charges are in place, and in that time there will be financial support is opening up between now and then, as I've said, as well as the applications for exemptions. So what you can do now is start to think about it and prepare. You can go to our website, cleanairgm.com/prepare, and from that you'll be taken to the government vehicle checker, where you can check your vehicle through a number plate, or you can answer a series of questions to think whether you would be charged and whether you would be eligible for funding in order to support you to replace your non-compliant vehicle. So it's happening now. You may have seen signs going up, and there is an extensive marketing, communications and engagement programme happening now, and will continue to happen and ramp up in 2022 in order to get us all ready for the Clean Air Zone going live in May next year. And I think that's about, oh no, I have one more slide, sorry about that. So I kind of said this already. So what you can do is you can go and see if your vehicles are impacted now by visiting cleanairgm.com/prepare. You could sign up for updates so you know when everything is going live in order to apply for funding, apply for exemptions, or just keep abreast of what's happening, keep up to date with anything news related on clean air. And I would absolutely recommend you do that, because you'll be the first to know as to what the latest developments are on that. And that is it from me now.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you for dealing with the technical issues there as well. It all sounded fine. So the really good news coming out of that, considering you've presented to probably about 5 or 6 of our meetings, is actually the money that you were sort of asking for from government has come through, because that was always going to be the stopping point, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly, Vaughan. So of our request, we did ask for a bit more money than that, but I think we've got the most of it. We've also got an agreement in place with government where if we are seeing issues with the Clean Air Plan and how it's being implemented, or with funding, either we're running out of funding, or we are it's not being taken up, we can go back to government and look at how we do things differently. And that might be asking for more money, asking at how we can perhaps change things up, so change that funding in some way as well. So there are options as well. This is not kind of just the end of it. What we have, we just need to see how it goes and how it moves forward first before we take any decisions to change it.
Okay. And a question through from Deborah Fuller there. Is there any sort of bursary scheme or eligibility for more funding depending on the financial security of the business itself?
Yeah, so there's quite detailed eligibility criteria that you can look at on the website. So the location of the business is one of the criteria, also the size of the business. So we're trying to support those who have the oldest, dirtiest vehicles and are probably the least likely to be able to afford the upgrade. So we're looking at the eligibility criteria is restricted to small and micro businesses and sole traders, charities, social enterprises and private individuals, to try and support those who from the analysis that we've done, we feel need that support the most.
Okay. Doubtless, as this is going to be a major theme for next year and then into 2023, we'll be returning to this on a number of occasions, but certainly the money and the support is a very good thing, because it's something that was supported in principle, and that was always the first question, wasn't it? Was how is it going to be paid for? So that's great. Emma, is there anything else from you?
Sorry, no, nothing else from me. So it's just really if anyone's got any other questions or any other points they wanted to pick up on whilst we're all together.
Oh yeah, sorry, again from Deborah. Are comms available in different community languages? Usually that's the...
Emma, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think with regards to provision for non-English speakers, and also I think supporting people who aren't as comfortable using digital communications as well, we do have mitigations in place. So there is a phone line alongside the website which will help to guide people through the process of understanding whether or not they're impacted, and if they are, what their options are. Also through that phone line, there is support through language line for non-English speakers as well. So again, directing people through that line, and we're able to support with different languages through that channel. So absolutely sort of making sure we're considering different requirements as part of the implementation.
Cool. The link for the newsletter. So we'll do a summary email out to attendees and in fact to membership more generally, linking into the 4-page briefing document that Sally was talking about, rather than the full presentation, and the newsletters and the various contacts as well. So all of that is with you later today, hopefully. So you should have that information, and obviously we'll be putting up the recording. If you want the full impact of all those presentations, I think there is a conversation. Obviously, there was a lot about cycle hire in there. There is a conversation underway about then what we can do early next year as CityCo to do a briefing around as that moves into the city centre and how that works with businesses in the city centre. So that will be another one that we come back to. But that was really useful, and sort of really deep dive into everything from how the network is performing now to what it's going to be doing next year to the next couple of years. So that was really useful. Thank you very much indeed. Inevitably, we will be returning to this again and again. But if there are any questions from attendees, please do send them through to us, and we will get you answers or get you to somebody who can answer them. We would never try and answer them ourselves if they're too technical. We will send around that link to the recording and that link to all the other information. Thank you for coming. The next CityCo event will be on the 15th of December, which is our monthly intelligence / performance briefing on how the city centre is doing. That will be up-to-date figures for November, footfall sales, and also that will be transport as well. So hopefully things will continue to be as good as they've been for the last few weeks. All dependent on the weather a little bit. But thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed that, and hope you got something out of it. And I will speak to you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vaughan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Vaughan. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.